Her touch killed everything except this human lieutenant. The polished alloy floor of Concord Spire shimmered with reflections of the cosmos beyond its panoramic windows, a cold, flawless surface beneath the weight of uneasy peace. Marcus stood watchful, his Earth Coalition uniform a dark silhouette against the station's white brilliance. He scanned the gathering council chamber, every motion taut with anticipation. The Veyran ambassador's long, furred ear flicked anxiously. The CERN envoy, barely waist-high to Marcus, adjusted her ceremonial sashes and darted nervous glances at the exits. But it was the Lysian delegation that commanded the air itself. Emissary Sira of the Lysian Collective moved at the delegation's center, her very presence parting the crowd like gravity-bending light. Iridescent skin shimmered with subtle, shifting color, silvers, blues, hints of violet that seemed to flow beneath her translucent flesh. Her hair, long and dark, rippled behind her shoulders, framing a face carved in serene resolve. Deep violet eyes swept the room, unreadable, and at her temples, faint neural lights pulsed in time with her breath, casting soft glows that flickered across the white walls. Her entourage, a quartet in matte black armor, moved in tight formation. They kept a rigid, almost ceremonial distance around her. No one dared step within that invisible border. Even the most senior envoys gave a wide berth. Rumors had spread. Sira's touch could unravel a mind, the legacy of a weaponized affliction engineered to end a dynasty. She was both revered and feared, her presence a paradox of status and solitude. Marcus's calm crackled in his ear, Envoy Langley's clipped tones. "Status, Lieutenant?" He didn't take his eyes from the Lysians. "All clear, Envoy. The Lysian emissary is seated. Proceedings are imminent." He swept the upper walkways with a trained gaze. Something was off, a maintenance panel ajar, high above the council floor. Marcus's hand drifted toward his sidearm. The panel slid aside, too smoothly to be accidental. A shadow moved. "Evacuate now." Marcus's voice cut through the chamber, sharp as plasma fire. He lunged forward, boots pounding across the alloy floor. The Lysian guards stiffened, weapons half raised, but Marcus was already sprinting, eyes locked on the figure descending from the shadows. A shimmer in the air. Stealth tech, barely visible, fell toward Syrah, a compact device clutched in a gloved hand. Marcus dove, tackling a counselor out of the way, as the first explosion tore through the right ambassadorial bench. Fire and shrieking metal filled the air. Chaos erupted, envoys screaming, debris raining down, the acrid sting of burned circuitry and ozone choking the room. Overhead, another attacker dropped through the smoke. Marcus vaulted a barrier, adrenaline roaring in his veins. "Get her out!" he yelled to the Lysian guards, catching the second assailant mid-fall. They crashed together, a blur of limbs and snarling breath. A plasma blade flashed past Marcus's cheek. He twisted, slamming the attacker's wrist against the floor until the weapon clattered away, then drove an armored elbow into the visor. Glass splintered. The attacker slumped, unconscious. Marcus scrambled to his feet, searching the carnage for Syra. She was already moving, slipping through a security door as her protectors laid down suppressing fire. The door began to descend, hydraulics whining, cutting off the corridor. "Go!" Marcus shouted, sprinting. He dove under the door just as it slammed shut, sealing them off from the chaos. The emergency lighting snapped on, flooding the corridor with crimson pulses. He caught his breath, pulse hammering. The corridor stretched ahead, choked with shadows. Syrah stood several meters away, posture rigid, the rise and fall of her chest betraying her calm. Before either could speak, another figure detached from the gloom, a third attacker, weapon raised, blocking any escape. There was no time to think. Syrah's hand lifted, shimmering with bioluminescent light. Her neural implants blazed, pulses flickering faster, casting her features in sharp relief. The attacker lunged. Marcus moved on instinct, throwing himself between them. The weapon struck his armored side, a searing, burning impact. Syrah's hand clamped down on his flank at the same instant, charged with alien energy. Cold fire ripped through Marcus, an electric agony that froze and burned at once. His heart hammered, his lungs spasmed. For a moment he was nowhere, adrift in a starless void. He forced himself up, muscles screaming. With a guttural roar, he shoved the attacker aside, sending the assassin sprawling. Then the world tilted. Marcus dropped to one knee, vision tunneling, every breath a desperate battle. The attacker convulsed and collapsed, motionless. Silence flooded the corridor. Marcus stared at the floor, breath rasping. A strange frost bloomed across his uniform, tinged with shifting color. He heard Syrah's gasp, raw and unguarded. She knelt beside him, neural lights flickering wildly. Her face was stripped of formality, eyes wide with disbelief. "You..." Her voice trembled, the word barely audible. Marcus managed a groan, forcing himself upright. His side throbbed where her hand had touched him, the cold lingering but dulling. Syrah reached out hesitantly, her fingertips brushing his arm. The chill stabbed him, but not as deeply. "Don't move," she said softly, her tone more command than plea. Her touch lingered, as if seeking some secret in the thrum of his life. Marcus's eyes met hers, violet depths swirling with confusion, fear, and a dawning wonder. Syrah jerked her hand back, shock written across her features. "You should be dead," she whispered. But Marcus was breathing, alive. Against every law of science, of Lycian genetics, of fate. They both knew it. He sagged against the wall, wincing. Syrah's composure rebuilt itself, but cracks remained, her humanity shining through the mask of office. For a moment they were simply two people, isolated by chance and violence. "We must move," Marcus rasped, scanning the wall console. A flicker of blueprint spilled across his visor. "Service conduit, 2 decks down, that's our way." Syrah straightened, neural lights steadying. "The enemy will not relent," she said, voice cool again. "They will hunt us." "Let them try." Marcus pushed to his feet, fighting the lingering numbness. He led them through the winding guts of Concord Spire, down maintenance shafts slick with condensation, across exposed girders over dizzying drops. Alarms wailed overhead, boots echoed nearby. Twice they ducked into alcoves as search patrols swept past, Syrah's breath cool against his neck, her presence a hush of alien calm inches from his heat. At a broken access bridge, Marcus anchored a cable, sending it arcing across the gap. He braced himself, hand extended. Syrah hesitated only a heartbeat before accepting, her fingers trembling as they closed around his. The charge between them was more than electrical. Something unspoken sparked in the contact. He steadied her as she crossed, his palm at her waist. She tensed, surprised, her breath catching, an unfamiliar, startling sensation. "Thank you, Lieutenant," she said, her voice a low murmur. Her eyes, luminous and searching, lingered on his for an extra beat before she looked away. They found shelter in a long-abandoned relay hub, shadows and silent machines their only company. The adrenaline faded, leaving space for the truth between them. Syrah broke the silence, her words brittle. "This affliction is not a blessing. It was engineered to destroy my lineage. It succeeded." Her voice trembled with old grief and a strange hope. For the first time, Marcus saw her not as a distant emissary, but as a prisoner in her own skin. His survival was more than an anomaly, it was destiny. The echo of that impossible touch lingered, a promise and a warning, as they prepared to move onward through the darkness. They reached a secure diplomatic suite, the heavy doors sliding closed behind Marcus and Sierra with a metallic sigh. The quiet here was different, an enforced stillness, layered with the unspoken anxieties of high command. Security protocols rippled through the walls, lights shifting from hostile red to a gentle blue. Syra's advisor and chief medic Talon rushed forward, his pale Lycian features etched with relief and worry. "Talon," Syra breathed, her poise slipping for a heartbeat. The medic's dark eyes scanned her, then flicked to Marcus. "Are you injured?" "Nothing critical," Marcus replied, though his side still tingled where Syra's power had touched him. Talon's scanner hummed, projecting a web of diagnostic light around Marcus. As he swept the device over the human's torso, his lips parted in astonishment. He recalibrated, scanned again. The readout pulsed in alien script, illuminating his wide eyes. "Unprecedented," Talon whispered, the word almost reverent. He turned to Syra. "Emissary, I must speak with you. Now." Without waiting for a reply, Talon ushered Syra toward the suite's adjoining chamber, the door whispering shut behind them. Marcus stood alone, flanked by Lycian guards who watched him with icy suspicion, their weapons angled subtly in his direction. The minutes stretched. Marcus paced, rolling his shoulder to keep his wounds from stiffening. His mind churned with fragments. Explosions. The burning cold of Syra's touch, the frost blooming across his uniform. He caught Talon's gaze through the glass partition, wary, almost fearful. The medic kept glancing at Marcus's data, as if expecting the numbers to betray some hidden danger. At last, Syra and Talon reemerged. The emissary's eyes met Marcus's, intense and searching, stripped of the diplomatic mask. "Lieutenant," she said, voice steady but urgent. "Talon has discovered something extraordinary. Your body hosts a colony of symbiotic nanites, organisms not native to your species. They reside within your cells, absorbing my neural energy, neutralizing it, and in turn fueling your own systems. When I touched you, your body adapted and resisted the effect." Marcus stared at her, the words slow to sink in. "Nanites. But how?" Syra's expression was somber, her gaze fixed on the past. "My ancestor, the first to suffer this curse, encountered an Earth vessel centuries ago, the Horizon. That ship vanished without explanation. We believe your ancestor was aboard, survived, and returned to Earth, carrying this legacy within. The nanites passed down through your line." Marcus pressed his hand to his ribs, as if he could feel the nanites moving beneath his skin. The weight of generations settled on his shoulders. "So I'm the key." Talon nodded, his tone awed. "If we can understand this adaptation, we might be able to end the curse, for Syrah and for all Lycians." The air shimmered with possibility and dread. Marcus glanced at Syrah, feeling the walls between them thin. A chime shattered the moment, urgent, insistent. One of Syrah's guards answered, voice terse. He turned, face grim. "Emissary, Lord Keln demands an audience. His guard has mobilized. Their orders have changed." Syrah's jaw tightened. "They no longer seek to kill Lieutenant Marcus. They wish to capture him." Talon's face paled. "If they control the nanites, they control the cure." The council chamber was a study in tension, the diplomatic facade stretched taut over a foundation of suspicion. Marcus shadowed Syrah's every step, a silent sentinel at her side. The air between them crackled with unspoken words, questions of trust and fate, fear and hope. Lord Keln swept in, his presence filling the room with the chill of command. He was tall, his armor etched with the sigils of a dozen victories, his expression cold and unreadable. His eyes flicked over Syrah, then lingered on Marcus, as if appraising a rare weapon. "Emissary?" Keln said, his voice smooth as glass. "Your survival is a relief. Your human protector performed admirably. His gaze was a scalpel, dissecting Marcus with every syllable. Marcus held the stare, refusing to flinch. Syrah inclined her head, her tone diplomatic. My survival is owed to the actions of many. We must focus on the threat that remains. Kellen's smile never reached his eyes. Of course. Yet it is clear some threats are also opportunities. He turned away, but Marcus felt the weight of his attention like a blade pressed between his shoulder blades. Back in the suite, tension followed them like a shadow. Talon hovered over Marcus, applying a thin layer of medical gel to his bruised ribs. Syrah watched, arms folded, her posture rigid. Talon glanced at her, uncertain. The emissary has requested to assist with your treatment. Marcus blinked, surprised. You don't have to. I want to, Syrah said quietly, moving to kneel beside him. She dipped her fingers into a vial of Lycian salve, the substance iridescent and cool. Gently, she pressed her fingers to Marcus's side. Her touch was careful, each movement deliberate, as if testing a boundary neither of them understood. A soothing chill radiated through Marcus's body, not the searing cold of her power, but a healing caress. He watched her face, saw concentration and something softer, fear and longing, war within her. Syrah's voice was barely above a whisper. When I was young, I dreamed of touching another without harm. Now, this feels like a dream I might wake from. The intimacy of the moment threatened to overwhelm Marcus. He almost reached for her hand, but stopped himself, his heart pounding in his chest. When Talon excused himself, the silence deepened. Marcus stared at the floor, the echo of her touch lingering. He couldn't shake the feeling that his autonomy was slipping away. Once, he'd been a soldier. Now he was a living key, a resource more valuable than his own life. That night, unable to sleep, Marcus found himself outside Syrah's quarters, his mind a storm of uncertainty. He pressed the chime. The door slid open. Syrah stood in the faint glow of the suite, her hair unbound, eyes shadowed. He stepped inside, voice tight. I'm not just a lieutenant now. Am I even myself? Or just a tool to be used? Syrah's composure broke. She crossed the room in 2 quick steps, her hands trembling at her sides. You are the only one I have ever truly seen. You have shared my burden. How could I see you as anything less than everything? Marcus hesitated only a moment before closing the distance. He raised his hand to her face, gentle, almost hesitant. She flinched at the first contact, but then leaned into his palm, her neural lights flickering in time with her breath. He drew her closer, his lips brushing hers. The kiss was a meeting of opposites, his warmth and her cool, his longing and her relief. For the first time, the barriers between them fell away. Syrah clung to him, her arms wrapping around his shoulders, trembling as she allowed herself the intimacy she'd been denied her whole life. The air between them pulsed with new possibility. A sudden, silent alarm shattered the peace. Syrah pulled back, her eyes wide, the neural lights at her temples strobing in warning. They're here, she whispered. Boots thundered down the corridor. Kellen's guard, armored and implacable, began their breach of the suite. Syrah snapped orders in Lycian, her staff scattering to secure all data on the cure. Talon raced to a console, hands flying across the controls as he initiated data wipes and encrypted backups. Marcus's soldier instincts took command. He scanned the suite, eyes darting to the wide viewport overlooking Conquered Spire's outer shell. That's our way out, he said, grabbing a heavy chair and slamming it into the reinforced glass. The window spiderwebbed, then buckled. Emergency containment fields snapped into place, shimmering blue across the opening. Kellen's men burst through the main door, plasma rifles raised. Marcus fired back, covering Syrah as she gathered a small bundle of research drives and sprinted to the viewport. Go! he barked. He grabbed her hand and pulled her onto the narrow ledge outside, the stars dizzying beneath their feet. The containment fields flexed around them, holding an atmosphere as they scrambled along the station's curved hull. Blaster bolts tore past, sizzling against the force field. Sira ducked behind Marcus, clutching the drives to her chest. One of Keln's guards leaned out, weapon raised. Sira's eyes narrowed, neural lights blazing. She flung out her hand. A pulse of shimmering energy slammed into the guard, who collapsed, weapon sparking. Marcus turned, severing the grappling lines that the last of their pursuers had fired. Keln's men tumbled back into the suite, shouting in fury. "Keep moving!" Marcus called, helping Sira across the trembling ledge. They disappeared into the shadows of the station's superstructure, breathless and alive. The impossible connection between them their only certainty as they vanished into the night. They fought their way to the station's energy core, the walls trembling with the distant rumble of pursuit. Marcus's breath came ragged, every muscle burning as he pulled Sira through the labyrinthine maintenance corridors. Plasma bolts sizzled past, ricocheting off the armored bulkheads, painting the shadows in stuttering bursts of light. Keln's voice echoed ahead, cold, triumphant. "You're only delaying the inevitable, emissary. Your curse will be the end of you. And them." The core chamber loomed ahead, ringed with pulsing conduits, and the low, throbbing glow of a fusion heart that powered all of Concord's spire. The hum of energy pressed in on them, oppressive and alive. Marcus hesitated, eyes scanning for threats, but Sira moved beside him, her aura almost visible in the electric air. They burst through the final hatch, only to find Keln already at the command platform, his elite guards fanned out with rifles leveled. Keln himself stood at the main control panel, one hand poised over a sleek dispersal device studded with Lycian glyphs. The device's core glimmered with a sickly, shifting light. Keln's lips curled. "Stop right there," he commanded, his voice amplified by the chamber's acoustics. "This device is linked to the atmospheric processors. One command, and Sira's affliction will be released into every system, into every living being on this station. Surrender, or I unleash your curse on all." Sira froze, her entire body rigid with horror. The neural lights at her temples flared, echoing her fear. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Keln, you would kill thousands, your own people, just to seize power." He sneered. "A necessary sacrifice. When they see what you are, they will beg for my protection." The guards closed in, weapons drawn. Marcus felt Sira tense beside him. Every instinct screamed at him to fight, but a glance at the dispersal device told him Keln meant every word. Sira's hand hovered at her side, fingers trembling with suppressed power. She couldn't risk so many lives for her own freedom. Marcus caught her eye. He shook his head subtly. "Trust me." He stepped forward, voice steady. "You want power, Keln? You want to prove you can control her curse? Then look at us. Look at what we can do together." Keln's eyes narrowed. "Another bluff from a human?" Sira's gaze met Marcus's, searching, desperate. He reached for her hand, threading his fingers through hers. The contact was electric, a jolt of pain and exhilaration that raced through both of them. Marcus gasped, feeling the nanites within him respond to Sira's energy, the cold and heat intermingling. A visible aura shimmered around them, ribbons of light and shadow twisting in the charged air. Sira's neural lights pulsed in tandem with the thrum of the energy core. The guards hesitated, thrown off by the spectacle. Even Keln stepped back, his confidence faltering. Marcus gritted his teeth, focusing. "Sira, now!" Together, they turned their joined energy toward the dispersal device. Sira's eyes blazed violet, the light at her temples becoming a corona. Marcus felt the nanites inside him absorb the wild energy, channeling it in a focused surge. Their combined power lanced out in a swirling arc, striking the device dead center. The machine whined, overloaded. Its glyphs flickered, then failed. A pulse of energy swept through the chamber, harmless, cleansing, leaving only the fading echo of what might have been disaster. The dispersal device crumpled, sparks hissing from ruptured seams. Keln screamed in fury, lunging for the panel, but Syrah's power lashed out, pinning him to the deck with a shimmering field. The guards faltered, then dropped their weapons, fear overtaking loyalty. Marcus's vision swam. He staggered, Syrah's hand the only anchor as the world spun. He tried to speak, but the energy had drained him, body and mind spent by the effort. The last thing he saw was Syrah's face, stricken with fear and concern, her voice a distant echo as he sank into darkness. Afterward, word spread quickly through Conquered Spire. Keln was detained, his coup shattered. The truth of Syrah's curse and Marcus's role in ending its tyranny became known. No more whispers in the corridors. Now there was awe and a cautious, dawning hope. The treaty was signed beneath the station's great dome, Earth and Lycia now allies, their flags entwined above the council. Syrah stood beside Marcus's empty chair, her face serene but eyes searching the crowd for any sign of him. A joint task force, Earth scientists and Lysian healers, worked night and day to synthesize a cure from the pattern of nanites flowing in Marcus's blood. He lay in the medical wing, drifting in and out of fevered dreams. Cold stars, Syrah's luminous eyes, the sensation of her hand in his, holding him to life. Time blurred. Marcus floated in the half-light of recovery, memories surfacing and fading. Syrah's voice, Talon's calm instructions, the soft beeping of monitors and the distant hum of the station's heart. Sometimes he felt Syrah's presence, cool and steady, anchoring him through the worst of the pain. When he finally woke to clarity, Syrah was there. No regalia, no symbols of her rank, just a simple blue tunic and her hair loose around her shoulders. She sat at his side, her posture relaxed, but her eyes rimmed with exhaustion and relief. She smiled as he stirred. "Welcome back, Marcus." His throat was dry. She helped him drink, lifting a cup to his lips, her hand cool but no longer dangerous. He managed a grateful smile, fingers brushing hers as he steadied the cup. "Keln is gone," she said softly. "The alliance holds. The cure is close. They think, with another week, the nanites can be synthesized for others." He stared at their joined hands, marveling at the gentle exchange of sensation. There was no pain, only a faint tingling warmth where her skin met his. "You can control it," he whispered, wonder threading his voice. "With you," she replied. She turned her hand, threading her fingers through his again, her thumb tracing the line of his knuckles. "You are my anchor, Marcus. When we're together, I can choose. I'm not a danger to anyone, not with you near." A quiet joy suffused the space between them. The burdens that had once seemed insurmountable now felt light in the gentle press of her hand. He lifted her palm to his cheek, letting the coolness ground him. "I'm not just a cure, and you're not just an emissary." Syrah shook her head, her hair falling forward. "No, we're just two people. That's all I ever wanted to be." Marcus felt a lump in his throat. He squeezed her hand, a promise in the gesture, and she smiled, radiant and unguarded. "When you're well," she said, her voice softer than he'd ever heard it, "I want to show you my world. It's beautiful, wilder than Conquered Spire, full of places where the sky is every color. I want you to see it through my eyes." He closed his hand over hers, feeling the slow, sure pulse of energy that bound them together. "I'd like that," he said, meeting her gaze. It was a promise, a beginning, the rest of the universe waiting, just beyond the window. A year later, Conquered Spire was a memory, an echo of crisis, heroism, and the beginning of something entirely new. The joint initiative, born in the aftermath, now filled laboratories and clinics across two worlds. The cure for Syrah's affliction, once a legend of despair, was nearly reality. But Marcus's life had changed in ways no scientist could quantify. He sat in the shuttle's observation bay, hands braced against his knees as the crystalline towers of Lycia drew nearer. Beside him, Syrah leaned forward, violet eyes shining, her profile etched in the blue-white glow reflecting from the city below. She slipped her hand into his, her cool palm fitting against his warmth. The sensation familiar now, a current of energy, soft and thrilling, harmonized instead of jarring. The shuttle descended through a spiraling halo of ice crystals, engines humming, the city's towers rising like frozen music from the plain. Lycia was unlike anything Marcus had imagined, a city sculpted from living crystal, each spire glowing from within, walls iridescent with shifting light. Walkways of translucent stone arched over rivers of liquid silver. Even the air seemed alive with gentle illumination, every breath tinged with ozone and something sweet. Marcus let out a low whistle. "Your home is extraordinary." Syrah smiled, her neural lights pulsing in a gentle rhythm. "You're the first human to see it with me. It's more beautiful, sharing it." They disembarked into the soft hush of Lycian evening. The city was alive, yet tranquil. Citizens in layered robes glided by, faces curious but no longer fearful when they looked at Syrah and at Marcus, the human whose legend was now woven into theirs. They walked hand in hand down radiant avenues. Murals lined the crystal walls, telling the story of Lycian history in images and light. Marcus paused at one, his gaze lingering. Among the flowing forms, warriors, explorers, healers, two new figures had been added, entwined in a spiral of gold and blue. One shone with the soft glow of warmth, the other cool and iridescent. Their hands met in the center, surrounded by a corona of merging light. Syrah squeezed his hand. "We have become part of the story." In the ancestral halls, they wandered through echoing galleries and beneath vast vaulted ceilings. Syrah's voice carried in the silence, recounting her lineage, the brilliance and tragedy of her ancestors. She traced her finger along the glyphs carved in crystal, pausing at the name of the first afflicted. "For centuries, we believed my ancestor brought only sorrow. Solitude became our inheritance. Now with you, the burden is halved." Marcus watched her, hearing the faint ache behind her strength. "You've never been alone, not since we met. Never again." She looked back at him, gratitude flickering across her features. That night, in Syrah's private quarters high in the city's tallest spire, the past became tangible. The room glowed with gentle, shifting light. No walls, only layers of translucent crystal, the sky visible beyond. Syrah produced an ancient data tablet from a small case and set it between them on the low table. "I want you to see this," she said quietly, activating the device. A projection flickered to life. An old, grainy log entry. Two figures, one unmistakably Lycian, the other human, stood on the deck of a forgotten starship. The Lycian's hand hovered hesitantly above the human's outstretched palm. The moment was frozen in time, the distance between them a chasm of fear and longing. "My ancestor believed she doomed us by reaching out," Syrah whispered. "But now we know. She began the cure, the journey that led us here." Marcus touched her shoulder, then gathered her into his arms. He felt the tension in her body, the old reflex, the fear of harming him, dissolve as she melted against his chest. The gentle pulse of their harmonized energies moved through them, a promise of what was possible. He pressed his lips to her hair. You turned a curse into hope, into love. The next morning, Talon greeted them in the central laboratory, the city's light casting intricate patterns across the floor. Monitors displayed shimmering fractals, the nanites, now evolving in ways no one had predicted. Talon's eyes shone with excitement. Your nanites are adapting, Marcus. Each time you and Syrah are in contact, they learn, integrating Lysian energy more efficiently. The cure isn't just replicating your condition, it's evolving with you both. It's alive, in a way. Syrah studied the display, her lips curving in a private smile. So our relationship is not just personal, it's the foundation of the cure. Talon nodded. Yes, you are both proof and path. The implications were profound. What had begun as isolation, fear, and forced separation was now the heart of an interstellar solution. The scientific teams, a blend of Earth and Lysian minds, marveled at the living proof before them each day. Marcus's blood samples became the catalyst for the final synthesis, and Syrah's measured energy the key to calibrating the treatment. Outside the laboratory, the galactic community watched. Skepticism faded, replaced by admiration and hope. News feeds projected images of Marcus and Syrah, hand in hand, attending diplomatic events, visiting clinics, standing as living proof that two worlds and two peoples could be more together than apart. Murals of the entwined figures appeared not just in Lycia, but on Earth and distant colonies. The alliance became a beacon, a symbol of change rippling through star systems. In the great amphitheater, Keln's trial unfolded, a public reckoning with old traditions. His attempt to weaponize fear, to shatter connection, was exposed for all to see. He was stripped of title and privilege, exiled to the outer reaches. The verdict echoed through the city, a signal that the age of isolation was ended. New laws passed, ensuring the rights of all Lycians, afflicted or not, to live without fear of their own gifts. As the final signing approached, the city shimmered with anticipation. The amphitheater was transformed, every surface alive with refracted light. Delegates from dozens of worlds gathered beneath the crystalline dome, the air thick with expectation and the scent of unfamiliar flowers. Syrah stood at the center dais, her gown simple but radiant, neural lights pulsing in calm harmony. Marcus waited beside her, dressed in Earth's ceremonial blue. He felt the weight of 100 gazes, the stirrings of old nerves, but Syrah's presence grounded him. Their hands brushed, a silent reassurance. Syrah lifted her gaze to the assembly, her voice clear and melodic. Today, with our Earth allies, we open the door to a new age. The legacy of pain, of solitude, ends here. Not with a cure alone, but with the choice to trust, to connect. We offer our touch, and hope for a future built on connection. A murmur rippled through the delegates. Syrah turned to Marcus, her eyes shining with unshed tears, and extended her hand. He took it, their fingers weaving together, a soft glow blooming where their skin met, cool and warm, energy and life in perfect balance. The chamber filled with light. Delegates stood, applause swelling in waves. In that moment, Marcus and Syrah became more than symbols. They were the embodiment of a promise, the living proof that the universe could change. He squeezed her hand, feeling the surge of hope in the air. The future was theirs, together. Life on Lycia settled into a new rhythm, as if the entire world had exhaled after holding its breath for centuries. The cure, once only a hope and a theory, was now synthesized and distributed in shimmering vials throughout the crystalline cities and frozen villages. Word spread quickly. Those once afflicted now held their loved ones close, marveling at the simple, profound act of touch. In homes carved from blue crystal and beside glowing ice gardens, parents embraced their children without fear. Whole families wept, laughed, and danced together, reclaiming what had been lost for generations. Babies born in the months after the cure arrived into arms that would never again be cold or distant. Marcus remained on Lycia, no longer a visitor or even an ambassador, but something subtler and more enduring, a bridge between worlds. His days were full. He trained with the Lycian Guard, exchanging Earth's tactical discipline for their elegant arts of energy manipulation. The guards, once wary of the human whose blood had changed their fate, now greeted him with respect and camaraderie. He learned to sense the gentle pulse of energy that wove through the city, the way Lycians shaped light and force as easily as a child might cup water in their hands. The nanites within him resonated, adapting, blending earthborn instinct with Lycian flow. He found purpose in helping others find their balance. He shared stories of Earth's wild oceans, its storms and sunlight, in return for tales of Lycia's twin moons, its luminous wildlife, its ancient festivals. The city's children often followed him, asking to see how humans played games or to watch him spar with the guards, laughter ringing out like wind chimes in the courtyards. But it was in the quiet hours that Marcus felt the true change. His relationship with Syrah had blossomed, the intensity of their shared crisis giving way to something gentler and more profound. Evenings belonged to them, slow walks beneath crystal arches, meals shared at the edge of Syrah's balcony overlooking the glowing towers, whispered dreams traded in the hush of her private quarters. They taught each other new languages, words for hope, for trust, for the kind of love that does not need to be spoken to be understood. Sometimes they traveled beyond the city, venturing into Lycia's wild places. Marcus never tired of the planet's beauty, the way the aurora flickered across the night sky, the soft chorus of bioluminescent insects, the reflection of the moons on still water. Syrah guided him to places from her childhood, secret gardens, ancient ruins, the quiet shrines where she had once prayed for freedom she thought impossible. Together, they created new memories, layers of meaning over the old. One evening, as dusk painted the sky in lavender and silver, Syrah invited Marcus to walk with her beyond the city's outermost spires. They followed a winding path lined with glowing moss, the air crisp and perfumed with night-blooming flowers. In the distance, the twin moons had already risen, casting their doubled light over the land. At the path's end, they reached a tranquil lake, its surface perfectly still, mirroring the heavens above. Syrah stopped at the shore, her silhouette outlined by moonlight. "My people hold naming ceremonies here," she said, her voice hushed with reverence, "to mark new beginnings, births, partnerships, seasons of change." Marcus gazed at the water, feeling its calm settle into his bones. "It's beautiful," he murmured. He watched as Syrah knelt and touched the surface, sending a ripple across the reflection of the moons. She rose, turning to face him, her eyes gleaming violet. "Tonight, I wanted to bring you here. Because you have given us a new start, Marcus. You helped end a loneliness that shaped our whole world. It is tradition for those who shape an era to give it a name." He felt the weight and honor of her words. "Me?" he asked, voice low. Syrah stepped closer, her expression earnest. "You. What would you call this time? This new chapter for Lycia? For all of us?" Marcus looked at the mirrored lake, then at Syrah. The answer came not as a revelation, but as a certainty, a truth that had woven itself through every moment they had shared. He reached for her hand. "The era of fusion," he said, "where two streams, of blood, of energy, of hearts, merge into something greater than they could ever be alone." Sirah's face lit with a joy that was both old and new, ancient sorrow transformed into radiant hope. The era of fusion, she echoed, her words a soft vow in the moonlit air. She touched his cheek, her hand cool and steady, the balance of her energy flowing into him and back again. There was no sting, no fear, only the comfort of belonging, the knowledge that he was both himself and something more, joined with her. Marcus closed his eyes, leaning into her touch. For the first time, he felt the totality of what they had built together. Not just a treaty, not only a cure, but a future where touch was no longer a weapon or a risk, but a gift. He was not just a soldier, not only a bearer of nanites or the living key to a medical breakthrough. He was a man who loved an emissary, a woman who had once been alone, but would be alone no longer. Together, beneath the watchful gaze of twin moons, they held each other. The lake mirrored their embrace, two figures becoming one reflection. The era of fusion had begun, and with it, the promise that from their union, life and connection would ripple outward, changing not only Lycia, but the galaxy itself. Their story became legend, a living testament to unity, not isolation. In the years that followed the first fusion, the tale of Marcus and Sirah spread far beyond Lycia's crystal towers or Earth's green fields. It resonated through the star-laced corridors of distant stations, echoed in the histories of worlds where touch had once been a thing of fear, not hope. The synthesized cure, perfected in the labs that Marcus and Sirah had filled with laughter and late-night debate, erased the Lysian affliction at last. Medical drones flew through luminous avenues and along icy mountain passes, distributing the vials that would undo centuries of solitude. Sirah herself visited clinics and schools, kneeling to meet the gaze of children who, for the first time, knew the warmth of an embrace. Old boundaries fell away. Lysians emerged from behind their crystalline walls, eager and uncertain, reaching for one another and for the galaxy beyond. The Earth Coalition and Lysian Collective forged a new path, their peoples entwined by more than law or necessity. Joint academies sprang up, places where Lysian youth learned Terran languages and arts of command, and Terran cadets practiced the subtle Lysian crafts of energy and empathy. The Joint Council, once a tenuous experiment, became a thriving parliament, its halls alive with voices and ideas from dozens of worlds. Marcus and Sirah became the living bridge between those worlds. Their love, once a secret flicker in the shadows of crisis, burned bright for all to see, a symbol, but also a truth. They welcomed dignitaries in the sunlit atriums of Lycia's capital and in Earth's great domed embassies. Together, they led the research that continued to improve the cure, refining it so that even distant colonies could share in its promise. They traveled the stars, not as emissary and protector, but as partners, as equals, championing empathy, not only as policy, but as practice. They stood before assemblies where old enemies shook hands and new alliances were kindled by the simple act of touch. Sirah's words, always poised and luminous, were now matched by Marcus's quiet conviction. When Sirah grew weary of the weight of expectation, Marcus was there, a steady presence at her side. And when Marcus doubted his place in this strange, beautiful world, Sirah's hand in his reminded him he belonged. The anniversary of the treaty's signing approached, and with it a celebration unlike any Lycia had ever seen. The city's crystal heart, once a place of solemn assembly, was transformed into a garden of light and music. Delegates from across the galaxy arrived, some in shimmering Lycian robes, others in Terran dress uniforms, and many in the colorful silks and armor of distant worlds. The air buzzed with languages and laughter, the shared anticipation of history made present. Syrah and Marcus stood together at the center of the great hall, a dais wreathed in floating petals and softly glowing lanterns. They were no longer merely emissary and protector, but something greater, partners in every sense. The crowd fell silent as Syrah stepped forward, her gown a cascade of iridescent crystal, her neural lights steady and bright. She spoke, her voice ringing clear as the bell tones of Lycian dawn. For generations, we were prisoners of a curse. We carried the chill of isolation in our blood, believing it our fate. Today, we celebrate the dawn of a new age. The era of fusion, where difference is potential, not peril. Where touch is a gift, not a threat. Marcus stood beside her, his hand in hers. The gentle, harmonious pulse that flowed between them was visible. A soft shimmer, a dance of warmth and light. He squeezed her fingers and she turned, her gaze full of love and pride. The crowd erupted in cheers, the delegates standing in ovation. All around them, Lycian children, once denied touch, once silent in their longing, now raced through the hall, laughter echoing off the crystal walls. Parents lifted them high, their joy a living proof of peace hard-won and cherished. After the ceremony, the celebration spilled into the streets. Music filled the avenues, and food from 100 cultures was shared beneath lanterns that flickered in the dusk. Marcus and Syrah wandered the city, stopping often to greet old friends and new allies. Some brought tokens, braided bands, carved stones, fresh blooms, small gifts of gratitude and remembrance. Everywhere they went, people reached out, eager to touch the hand that had changed their world. Night descended in layers of violet and indigo, the city aglow with refracted starlight. Marcus and Syrah slipped away to a high balcony, the city's lights stretching out below them, the sky a tapestry of distant suns. The cool night air stirred Syrah's hair, carrying with it the faint scent of crystal blossoms and the ocean beyond the city. Marcus stood behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. She leaned back into him, her body soft and sure against his chest. For a long moment they watched in silence, the world below alive with music and laughter, the stars above bright with promise. Syrah turned, pressing her cheek to his, her voice a whisper meant for him alone. "You brought warmth to my world, Marcus, and you made it home." He closed his eyes, letting the truth of her words settle deep inside. He pressed a gentle kiss to her temple, then to her lips, slow and reverent. In that embrace, all the old pain and longing vanished, replaced by the certainty of what they had built together. He pulled her closer, feeling the perfect balance of their energies, the fusion that had begun with a single forbidden touch and now lit the galaxy. The city's lights flickered in time with the heartbeat of the world they had remade. In that moment, their love, a fusion of warmth and light, became the heart of a new galaxy where even the coldest touch could be transformed by connection. That's the end of the story. Please do not forget to subscribe to our channel, like the video, and write in the comments what you liked most about this story. Our team will be very grateful to you. You can find even more fascinating stories on our channel. See you in the next video.